Have you ever wondered how you can have the freedom to do the things that you would like to do? Then we're going to be talking about that today in episode number 44 of the Surging Forward podcast. Stay tuned. Hello, and welcome to the Surging Forward broadcast, where we're helping you to have a positive view in a negative world. My name is David Valentine, and I'm here to help you see the value in the job you do and how you can keep surging forward. Well, hello again, and welcome to the Surging Forward podcast. We got a great interview today with a person that I've met through a fantastic group that I'm involved in, and his name is Vincent, and we're going to be talking today about freedom, where you can experience the freedom of financial freedom and freedom to do the work that you love to do. Is that even possible? Well, we're going to be talking about some of the stresses that we might be given to ourselves even. So, without further ado, he's written a great book, and I'm really going to be encouraging and asking that you guys take a look at the book. It's going to be coming out later on. But let him talk a little bit about the book here as we go through and talk about freelance to freedom. I'm here with Vincent, and how do you say your last name again, Vincent? I wanted to make sure I get it straight for all my viewers.
Puglisi.
Puglisi, that's what I thought it was. Okay. And where's that from?
Nobody gets it right, so don't worry about it.
So where's that from, actually? What's the heritage?
Southern Italy.
It's Italy. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, mine's Scotch, so I'm kind of Irish-Scotch. And
I was wondering about yours as well.
Yes.
That's good to know.
Yeah, my wife is actually Arthur, and we looked up our coat of arms, and they were actually the same. So we said, we're going to leave this alone because somewhere there was a feud way back when. So we just sort of leave that alone a little bit. So, but yeah, thanks for coming on the show today. And again, our show is about creating a positive view in a negative world. And, we reach a lot of guys and women who are just a lot of times struggling in their careers. And, I read your book, and it's like you and I just had so much in common. I was like, I didn't even realize it when you sent me the copy, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, wow, you get to that point, you have a vision. And, it was great you had a wife supported you also. My wife supported me so great with things, but every time I talk about entrepreneurship, she just goes, oh, no, not again. So, but she's really supporting me with this new one, too, also, because there is a freedom. And so what really kind of brought you to the point of really writing the book? Because you've kind of been on your own now for a while, right?
Yeah, it's been 9 years since we quit our jobs, went solo on our own. A big part of the whole thing to us was getting financially free, getting debt free. We paid off everything, paid off the house, and that really allowed us to really do the work that we wanted to do.
Right.
Instead of having to do work that other people wanted us to do or that we had to do for the money. The first time in our life we could take assignments based on what we wanted and the prices that we wanted, as opposed to what was given to us and said, oh, well, you got to pay the bills.
Right.
So, which is, a mantra almost at this point. Well, you got to pay the bills, right? As opposed to changing the game and realizing, why don't we get our stuff in order first, buckle down, go through the sacrifice, so that not long after we can take the assignments we want, turn down the ones that we don't want, turn down the people we don't want to work with. So our prices went up, the amount of time we worked went down.
Right.
Which freed up creative time to expand on other projects. So we got to do that for 6-7 years, and we had people always asking us, like, how do you get to do this? Like, you just travel with your kids because now we homeschool.
Oh, great. Good.
Yeah.
Both my kids were homeschooled. So beautiful.
Right?
Yeah, we did it when it wasn't very popular back in the 80s.
I didn't know anybody that did it then. And now, it seems like we're running into homeschool co-op everywhere.
That's fantastic. Wonderful. Yeah, that's a great thing. And kudos on that. That's we did it during the 80s, and matter of fact, we got a lot of resistance for it. We took our son out of school when he was in first grade, and
okay.
it just it wasn't. It was just the oxymorons of things that was going on even then. We were in Chicago, Illinois at the time, up in Illinois,
Okay.
and so that's kind of a cool thing. And they've done great. So, how old are your kids now then?
They are 11, 9, and 5.
Fantastic. That's cool.
Yeah.
And so
So
they've always known you as you've been on your own then. So you've been able to spend a lot of time with your kids then, right?
we only had a job, quote unquote job. I think Andrew was 3
Okay.
when I quit.
Wow.
Nolan was 1, so he doesn't remember it. And they came into the office a couple of times, but we knew it was going. And yeah, so that was the whole thing. That the homeschooling came down to, I know whatever direction you want to go, but we came down to we had all this freedom in our life, and then they were in school. So their whole childhood, we got to travel and do what we wanted to go to the park. And all of a sudden they're in school, and that's cute. They're like in for a couple hours a day, and then they were in the full day. And then one day we woke up and we were like, we don't ever see them again.
Wow.
And some parents, like, that's freedom to them.
Yeah, but no, we loved being, yeah, it was a great thing. Well, that kind of takes me to the next question, because a lot of guys I talk to a lot of young guys in the apprenticeship program and with contractors, and, they work for contractors, and, there's nothing wrong with working that full-time job. It's fine for certain people, but, what was the point in your life where you saw it was just that false sense of security? I mean, and what gave you the go-ahead? Because that had to be scary, having, little kids, and taking that leap.
Maybe I think I'm different, and it's not in a good way, but I was never good in school.
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted a job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in my book. I remember being my guidance counselor, and she was so frustrated with me. And she said, "Well, what do you want?" And I said, "I know I don't want to wear a tie." I was 16 years old. I had pimples all over my face. I was arrogant, but I knew I did not want to wear a tie.
That's why I went into contracting business.
Exactly. So she was exasperated, but I wish she would have seen. I had potential in certain areas. As far as my school's concerned, I was useless. And I remember my friend saying to me, "What are you going to do?" And I remember saying, "I'll figure it out." I had no reason to think that, but I just knew that wasn't it, what they were teaching me. Not to bash. I just knew it. I was in a great school, Long Island, New York. It was a good school. It just wasn't. So I went through a 5-year period where I struggled with a lot of stuff. And when I finally found photography, which my dad helped me so much find, I knew I didn't want to work for somebody else.
Right.
So once I had a job as a newspaper photographer, which was a dream job in a way, I got to shoot Super Bowls.
Yeah, I was reading that. That's cool.
But I never wanted to be an employee even during that time.
Wow.
So when we started planning on going on our own, I was never. I know this is probably not a helpful answer. I was never scared.
Really? Okay.
I was excited for it. I couldn't wait to go.
Cool. And that's a big thing, because I talk to a lot of guys a lot of times. They want it, but they just kind of lose their fact. They don't know how to dream. They're so locked into that, that security.
Yeah.
And I experienced a very similar thing when I started my first business. I can remember asking my wife to marry me. I asked my father-in-law if I could, marry her and all that good stuff. And he said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm going to have my own business." At the time, I had just got out of the Navy. I'm 22 years old. And he's looking at me like, "Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I don't know, but I'm going to do something." And he's just looking at me like, "You're married my daughter?
You're
Really?
not married my daughter.
Are you kidding me?" So, yeah, it was that same thing. It was a passion that's there, because I saw, I guess, growing up all my life, my dad was never around, constantly working and working and working and working. And, he was a military guy. Nothing wrong with the military, is great, but he was always gone, and doing things. So that passion is there. So for those that are afraid of that, what kind of advice would you give them on that? I mean, because is there security in a job? Is there any less security than anything else?
I believe there's less security in a job than there is in
Absolutely.
entrepreneurship if you do it.
Yes.
If you study it. Because we had the conversation with so many employees that were, here's the deal. When you go through school, which your kids are fortunate, what you did for them, because you go through essentially indoctrinated into thinking you need to get a job. Everything you do from 4th grade on is to prepare you for a job. It's not to prepare you for a business. So you're already scared by the time you're in high school of it. You're going to college. Why? To learn or to prepare for a job? If you ask that question, most people, so I can get a good job. It's not so I can run a good business.
True.
It's so I can get a good job. So then when you come out of college, now you're talking 16 years. Of your 22 years, you've pretty much been trained to get a job. Of course people are going to be afraid.
And then you got to pay the student loans back.
Yeah. So, exactly. So I can't take a chance because I got 120 grand student loans, and they're already behind the eight ball. And I write about that a lot. If people at 18 years old started a business that are going to college, how different would the world be? I think it'd be a pretty awesome place. Because I think I love college. I had a great time in college. I learned a lot, but I think the price tag that comes along with it now is so dangerous for the future of these kids. Because you're 35 years old still paying back loans in a job selling insurance that you hate, but you got to pay for the loans, and you wake up and you go, what happened?
We have so many different degrees now. Fortunately, my son, he went to computer programming. He's got a great job. He works with Oracle, and he's doing real good. But again, he's already got that goal, I guess it came from me, that he's going to be done working by the time he's 40. He's just trying to get himself together to a certain point where he's going to run his own company. And, he's been doing a lot of things. Matter of fact, he did start a company at a young age when he was still in college.
Okay.
He always wanted to work with Oracle, and he wants to work with Google, actually. That's his major goal, but he'll probably get out of it eventually because he's starting to see the real life of working for an employee, and he's seeing the difference in it. So it's a dream that he has. So what is it that, you said get a hold of the finances.
Yeah.
I was reading in your book when you say you talk to a lot of people and you say, when they really lay out their finances, you find out you really don't have to have 100 grand to live on. So
that's what everybody says. I need 120, whatever.
Yeah, 125 grand. I think you put in there, right?
Yeah, or they need, the whole thing now is everybody talks about, I need $2.5 million in retirement so I can live off of that if I want it. I'm like, well, that's ridiculous because if you are ambitious, like I'm never going to stop working unless I'm mentally and physically incapable of doing it.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
At any point, I can't. I mean, I'm 45. I don't need to do what I do, right? I can do so much less. But like when I'm 70. I'm not going to just sit on the beach.
No,
I
exactly.
Keep going. And
exactly.
So if you get rid of that hurdle of I need 2.5 million in stocks to make me my income, now all of a sudden having to save all that money. Now I'm all for investing. I do it, but that holds people back from doing their own thing. Because when I have that much money, then I'll do it.
Right.
But at the same time, you need so much less to live than you actually think you do. But we drown ourselves in so much debt. In terms of the house payment, 2-car payments, student loan payments, you combine husband and wife. It's one thing when you have a car payment, and student loan payments, and credit cards. Then you get married, you buy a house. Now you have a house payment. Then you're going to get probably an equity loan because you have to expend it on the house like everybody else does, right? And then you have 2-car payments, and then you have 2 student loan payments and credit. And then somebody wants to stay home with the kids. So now you need to support all that on one income. No wonder why everybody is completely stressed out. And then if you lose that job, everything falls apart. That's been the track that this generation has gone down. And to me, it's just dangerous. That's why I wrote this book, to help people avoid that.
Well, you've got me at a point. When I was reading the book, I'm right in the middle of doing some major renovations on my room addition. And so I was sitting there reading this book going, golly, respect. But I am doing a lot of the work on my own. So I said, we're going to live there. We can live with it for a little bit. And I got the drywall thing going in the back room, and that's going to be our new big living room. And it's funny because our kids are moved out now, but now we have all this house to live in. But we're going to stay here. That's going to be it. I'm not going to change anything. But so if you were, as far as somebody looking for their dreams, how do they find what the passion is? Because you get I noticed in your book you were saying, find your passion, find your dream, learn how to dream again. How do we teach those, this generation that's gone through that indoctrination, how to even dream? Because people think I'm crazy when I talk about my dreams. I do. And when I tell them I'm in jail every day, I tell everybody I go to jail for 8 to 10 hours a day. And they look at me like, well, you got a great job, Dave. And I go, yeah, it's a great job, but, I can't do anything. So what do you tell people? Well,
I'll say if people are making fun of that's a good thing. It means you're doing something. Because if they're not, it means you're following along with everybody else.
Right.
So I have my son's 11 years old and he loves bugs. Loves bugs. He has a blog. He's writing about it.
Oh, good for hell. That's cool.
He'll study it for hours. And some kids go, "You're weird," and he goes, and we've already talked about it. He's like, "I know. I like that."
Yeah.
I'm like, embrace it.
Right.
Because the weird ones are the ones that do stuff.
So if you were to, how do you encourage those to get into that, though? The ones that want to get out of that trap, who think that job's a secure thing there.
Well, what I've learned in terms of like coaching people is I can't want it more than they do. Like they have to want it.
That's a key. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not trying to convince anybody that has a job that wants a job to leave their job. You
Right.
know, there's room for all of it. I know in my life and the people that resonate with what I'm teaching and doing, they want more freedom.
Right.
They want more time. They want what I've learned is there's so many podcasters and books about becoming wealthy and becoming the billionaires, whatever. And what I've noticed is very few people I talk to really care about that. What they want is not financial stress.
It's the freedom and no financial stress. That's a key. And you can't get the freedom working all day long, 7 days a week, working tons of overtime.
You just can't. And you don't have to. First of all, what I've learned is, you know, and I'm not an expert on this at all. I'm an expert on my life, right? So I can't say like this is the way to do it. But what I've learned with me was when I was stressed for money, I had very little time for creative thoughts. I was stressed in every area. I was stressed with my wife. I was stressed with my kids. When that money stress went away, then I had more time to, in our own business, raise our prices, do less of that work, you know, still make the same amount of money, but have more time. Once I had more time, I noticed I got more creative and I got more ambitious.
That's the exciting part. Exactly.
That's the really fun part. So now ideas came up that I never even had a chance to think about because I was so stressed for money and time. Then we reduced the money and time stress even more, increased the time that we had even more, and then everything's open. I can fly to conferences and meet people that I would only meet, you know, I would never even have a chance to. Now I'm having dinner with them.
But you're not a multi-millionaire making billions of dollars on the Fortune 500 list, but you're doing all these cool things.
You're living like that.
Yeah.
But I wasn't.
I think that's the misnomer that people think. They got to be on that Fortune 500 list way up there. And, you know, you don't, yeah.
I went to San Diego for Social Media Marketing World. You know, Dan Miller and Pat Flynn and Johnny Dumas, Aaron Walk, all these guys. We're hanging out together. I think the trip cost me $3,500, right? Yeah. Most people have a $300 car payment.
Yeah.
You get to choose. You can choose a car payment for $300 a month, or I get a conference where, you know, 4 different ideas that came out of that conference are probably going to make me
a
lot of money in the future.
Yeah, I know Dan Miller talks about that a lot too. Yes, absolutely.
And you do that 3 or 4 times a year, you get. But the thing is, the conference was Wednesday through Friday.
And it's networking.
But I flew out on Thursday, came back on a Saturday. I couldn't do that if I had a job because that would be half of my vacation days for the year.
Right.
So that's why it limits the potential that you have.
It does. Absolutely. That's exciting. And, you know, when people can choose their own timetable of when they want to work, you know, or when they need to work, you know, and you could charge the different prices and you can do what you're worth. And then you have the freedom, like you say, the creativity, I think, is the big thing because you really can't be creative on a job. I mean, how creative did they let you be on your job when you worked for a newspaper photographer? You had to fit in their mold, you know?
I was able to be creative. It wasn't a bad gig. I got to be a photographer. I got to really kind of shoot the pictures I want, but I had to do it on their time.
Yes, on their time.
When I wanted vacation, I had to do it when somebody else didn't have vacation already.
Yeah.
I had a 6-person photo staff.
Right.
I couldn't just go for something that I wanted to go to.
Right.
I would never go back to that ever again. But, you know, I will scrape and claw before I ever have to ask somebody's permission to go on vacation again.
Right. Well, it's just the struggle because I remember it was one of the key things I read in your book where you were really struggling. You were starting to do really good on your side stuff, and all of a sudden they wanted you to work every Saturday, and you're like, hold on a minute, I can't, you know, or you're going to be fired. So, but you were able to work that out, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the same position. So.
And it's a lot of taking chances. It's getting your money together. It's getting your time together. It's figuring out. See, I'm not a passion guy.
Uh-huh.
I know it might come across in the book, but I really think passion can be dangerous if that's what you follow for your business. I think what I would recommend to anybody is you figure out a way to help somebody else. Because so many people are like, oh, I'm passionate about photography, or I'm passionate about art. Well, that's wonderful. Do it. But don't expect somebody to pay you for it just because you're passionate about it.
Right.
They're not going to. If you make it useful for somebody else that helps them more than it helps you, now you've got a business. So many people want to go to their passion, and my passion is yoga. Wonderful. But you better figure out how to do that where that is better or different than all the other people doing it, that you can help people with it, not just because you want to do it.
That's a good point.
I think that gets lost in the beginning.
It does. I think it gets lost in the beginning because it's almost like a hobby. I've seen it, you know, directed against that. And, And that's one of the things that even the advice that even my own son gave me, because I kind of raised him up as an entrepreneur. That's why he got me even into the podcast thing.
Awesome.
And it's awesome, because I have, matter of fact, I don't even listen to stuff on the way home from work. And I've gotten so many people involved in it themselves. I don't even listen to the news anymore, because then you get all stressed out and tense by the time you get home from your job, So it's the same thing. Well, let me direct to one other thing. And I really like the idea of your freedom. Where did you come up with the 4 years? What was the reasoning for 4 years? Why not 5 or 7? A lot of people use the number 7, but why 4?
The 4 just happened. That wasn't a plan.
Okay.
That was what happened was, I had just won like the biggest photography award you can win in the newspaper, in the sports world. I was International Sports Photographer of the Year. And at the big sit down, we were a month away from having a baby. And I had my big sit-down meeting where everybody's like, "Oh, you're gonna get your big raise now." And I was making $32,000 a year, and I got a 3% raise. But the thing was, that was special because everybody else got nothing.
Wow.
They told me because of what you've done, you have to, but there aren't rates. So I knew right then and there it was over. But we were $140,000 in debt, and I was making $15 an hour.
Wow.
In my dream job, right? And a baby about to be born, and my wife wanted to stay home with our son if we could. So I think a lot of times you have to get hit over the head and feel so much pain to do something.
Right.
Because a year earlier I would have been like, yeah, that sounds good, but I don't know if I'm ready, that type of thing. No, I was ready at that point.
Right.
I was like, I have to. So I sat, and the biggest conversation I had with my dad was, I tried to get a job working for his business because I used to work for him that same day.
Yeah, I read that in the book. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he said to me something. He said, no. He goes, I'd have to retrain you, this and that. He didn't throw me a line, but he did say to me, he goes, you're doing this wrong. He goes, you have a talent, and you're not using it correctly. And that was the most important thing he could have ever said to me, because I had a talent that I developed that earned $32,000 a year, and I figured that was my limit. And this is where, if anybody can take something out of this, I thought that was my limit. That was what was told to me. The most I'm going to get paid. Not realizing I could take that same talent, same skill, use it in a different part of the business, like wedding and corporate photography, and we made $32,000 in 7 weddings for the same amount of money within a year.
Now, reading on that, that's a key right there, because we're all, and I'm not saying, you and I, we kind of talked a little bit before the podcast about some of our histories, but, I try to portray that to some of the young guys also. How do you get people to break out of that mold with the limit? I mean, not that you want to tell them what to do, but so many people feel like they're capped at that main limit. How do you get them to see beyond that limit? When you're trying to encourage somebody on that, because that's a tough thing. What you said, you thought you were the limit. What allowed you to break out that mold? I
was just so fed up with the life that we were living that I had to. I don't think anybody could have convinced it for me. I don't think I could have I don't think me now could have sat down with me then and convinced myself. I had to be so tired of that life. You have to reach that point. Yeah. And then you go search out the books and the people to help you.
Right. And there's plenty out there today. There's a lot of information.
More now than there was when we started.
Ever. Oh, yes, absolutely. I used to go to the library and read Zig Ziglar, and check the book out because I couldn't afford the book.
Yeah. Zig Ziglar, Robert Kiyosaki.
Oh, yeah, Robert Kiyosaki, absolutely.
Dave Ramsey, we jumped right on his plan. That was getting out of debt. John Miller, QBQ. There was so much.
Right.
Dan Miller. So I just went to Barnes & Noble and I would just read books. Instead of, like you said, watching the news or watching sports, I read these things and it catapulted us. So within 4 years, we had paid off all of our debt, including our house.
That's fantastic.
Jobs,
that is fantastic.
And we were on our own.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So now, as you went on your own, now all the successes weren't always successful. There were some bumpy roads. Like, as soon as you go out on the road, because I can remember even some of the old stories when I had my one business before. As soon as we went on the refrigerator breaks, everything happened. And, it's like, oh my gosh, Lord, is this really what I need to do? And you just get on your knees and just pray, where's the next dollar coming in? Yeah. So, do those kind of things, are they real or do they happen to everybody?
Oh, without a doubt. Our car, we went through it all. Well, the main thing we figured out which was huge, was how little could we possibly live on. And nobody wants to do this, but that was the biggest thing.
That's important. I like that.
Money can we make? I read the story recently about Elon Musk, and I put in the book where...
I saw that. I never knew that. That's interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
That is fantastic.
he was, and I'll tell you, everybody, he was, when he was a college student in Canada, he knew he wanted to do what he's doing now with Tesla and SpaceX, but he knew that if he got to the U.S. and he wanted to come to the U.S., he knew if he came here and got a job, he would never be able to do it. So he moved here and he figured out how little he could live on.
That's fantastic.
And he said, except for rent, he could live on, at that point, $30 a month.
Yeah.
Oranges and hot dogs.
Yeah, $1 a day is what it said.
But that allowed him the flexibility and the freedom to start doing what he did, and now he's worth $12 billion.
Yes.
But if he was like everybody else, for the most part, he would have gotten a nicer apartment.
Mm-hmm.
He would have gotten a car. He would have taken out student loans because that's what we do, right? He would have done everything else that we do because we deserve it, and then he would never have had the opportunity to do that.
Constantly staying in debt.
So
Wow.
we called it our fruit. Like, what is your fruit? It's your utilities, your basic expenses, your housing, and it's lined up in the book. Insurance,
Mm-hmm.
transportation, and you put those together. What is that? And we realized that number was so much lower than we realized what we needed to live on. We were spending a lot more than that, but we only needed the fruit.
Right.
And that, when we realized that, wait a second, if we could just live on that, we don't need that much work to get by, and that at least will allow us to increase our business. So I think most people, if you're living on $100,000 a year, that's really difficult to do.
Exactly.
But if you can get by on $3,000 a month, it's really pretty easy to get started. But most people, you've already got that big mortgage or car payments, and they don't want to cut back on it. That's where people are stuck.
I noticed in your book also you talk about some of the people who hung around you and they kind of discourage you sometimes. Oh, you can't do that. You can't do this. And, now you get to a point, and I know I've had it made, even when I've had the businesses, you're doing fairly well, you're working. But then you got the other guy looking, it's like, oh, you got it made,
Must be nice.
You must be nice. Yeah, that's what it was you had in the book. Must be nice, But yet, those are the same people that don't even ever try to make that step forward,
Yeah.
And so sometimes we do have to separate from those kind of people sometimes, and to stay away from that negativity. You always want to keep that positive attitude.
Well, there's two things to it. When you start out there, and I was there at some point. You don't want them to succeed because it's going to shine the light on what you're not doing. So they will discourage you.
That's big. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's tough, but at the same time, they're the ones that tell you not to do it, why it's going to fail, why it's a problem. But you have to be prepared that when you eventually do it, they will be the same people that go, "Oh, you're lucky."
Yeah, you're lucky. Exactly. That's what you always hear on it.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm lucky I didn't get hit by a bus. I'm lucky, I'm lucky for a lot of things, but this, I'm not saying I did all this or my wife and I did all this, but we just kept going.
You keep going. It's perseverance.
Yeah, there's luck with everybody. We're all, anybody that said that I'm lucky is lucky as well because they're alive just like I am.
Right. It's not like you didn't have any bumps in the road. Not like you didn't have any cameras stolen or lost. I read your panic story of like, oh my gosh, your whole world's done. But you survive.
You keep going.
Yeah.
And so I think I separate from the people that do that because, like you said, in a negative world, I love this world. I think there's so much positive, but there are people that will try to bring it. And I don't think most of them mean anything really harm by it. I think they're scared.
Well, misery loves company.
Yeah.
That's what I tell a lot of people. It is actually, it's much harder to be positive than it is to be negative. It's just like, I get upset sometimes, even when we go to family gatherings, we get together with friends and all this, and right away everybody starts talking about how hard they have it. So right away you want to, oh, my bills are this high, mine are this high, well, mine are worse. And as soon as I find yourself getting, I always back off from that. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. No, I have a good life. We're doing good. We're doing, and then it's like right away they turn on you and go, what do you mean you're doing good? And it's like,
exactly.
Wow, it's like a wolf's mentality.
How dare you do good?
Yeah, it's exactly. And so the negativity really pulls you down.
There's no doubt. I wind up doing just kind of like the bobblehead. I've learned I don't argue anymore in those situations. I kind of just nod.
Yeah.
Quiet. And they call about this, I'll just nod.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of wait for it to be over.
Right.
But, they're not looking for my advice.
Right. They're just trying to compare the miseries,
Yeah.
And they get almost happy in that environment, but yet sad,
Well, it's very comfortable. And when you have other people complaining with you, it feels, oh yeah, that stinks too. Oh yeah, let me tell you about that. And like, and trust me, I know this because I lived it. I am not like, oh, I just don't want to do it anymore.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's great. Well, Wow, we're going pretty good here. Well, I tell you, yeah, I didn't realize how long it was going there. We're just going to roll. But again, I would like to really figure out. I really want to make sure. When did you say your book's actually coming out?
Comes out in December. It'll be on Amazon. It'll be in bookstores January 2nd.
Okay, cool. And we're going to make sure we do a rebroadcast of this because I want to let her. Is there a website that you have that you want to that you have anybody for promoting? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, my name, VincentPuglisi.com, is my main website. But
Okay.
There's also Freelance to Freedom book.
Okay.
Where you can sign up for the email list to get the updates on
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think everybody should, everybody who's listening should really check it out. Because like I say, I've read the book and I can't put it down. I just keep reading it and rereading it. So, mostly because it's good and bad. I got to be honest, because it's almost frustrating. It's like, golly, I did that. I'm doing that. And I know better, because like I said, I've had 3 businesses, and I think my problem was, I had success at a young age. I did fairly well, but I didn't pay attention to the business part, and so when I changed, I did some things down here, and I didn't put the right people around me. I did everything myself, and I grew way too fast, too big. And I didn't have the right counseling around me, So that was one of my mistakes. And I always, to me, mistakes are, we're all going to have failures, but we learn from those failures, and that's how we keep moving on. And so that's what's exciting about it. And I know your book talked about a couple of those things too, and you just kept conquering each one of these. You hit those road miles, and you just keep on going. And I think that's what's important. So, go ahead.
There's such a power in momentum with that. I think it gets lost. I think when I know so many people that they do fits and starts. They've had enough. They do something, and then 2 months later, it's done. Something got in the way. It was too frustrating, and then it stops. And that's the worst part.
Perseverance.
Yeah, it's kind of like the people that smoke and then they quit.
Yeah.
And by the 8th time they quit, but they're getting back to it because there's just too much repetition. Like it's happened before. It happens the same thing. It's like eventually when you go, I've had it. I'm getting out of this. I'm going to, in 3 months, I'm going to be just as passionate as I am right now. That's when momentum will start. When momentum happens, magical things start to happen in your life. It really does.
So how's the business going now? Everything, is it still growing, or are you kind of at a capping point?
In terms of the photography part?
Yes. Yeah.
The photography part is a very small part of our business now.
But you're also doing coaching now, too.
I do a ton of coaching. I do masterminds on exactly what we're doing right now.
Right.
So
and so you've branched off with your main business, which is another exciting deal. So
there's that. I mean, that you talk about the time freedom and the money freedom. It allowed me to do these things where I still do the photography, but just on my terms. So, which is a lot less because a lot of the rates have gone down. Even the sports world is awful. Mm-hmm. But I get to do when I want to do it at my choosing. I do the coaching, the mastermind. I also did, I had the time, I hooked up with a guy named Kyle Schultz, who runs an online photo school called Schultz Photo School, which I never knew anything about online courses. This is the time freedom.
Wow.
We met at a mastermind conference. I saw what he was doing. He saw what I was doing. We agreed immediately, why don't we do a course together? Right? So Fantastic. It all comes down to this. We said, let's do it. And he coaches for parents to take better pictures of their kids. That's what. So I'm like, okay, I never thought about that before. He goes, we can do a sports course for them. The craziest part about it is 2 weeks ago it launched. It was the 5-day course, and then it closed, and it's opening back up in the fall. Well, the crazy thing is the beginning of my book starts off making $32,000 a year and frustrated. The course in its first day, same talent, same information, same ideas, made more than $32,000 in the first day.
Wow.
That course made in a day what I would make in a year for the same stuff, same ideas. And I'm like, I'm glad I learned it now. I wish I would have learned it earlier.
Exactly.
Right? That's what I'm trying.
And that's what's wonderful.
There's so many. I'm sorry.
Well, you get that from the networking, right? From being able to have the freedom to meet people and go to like the social media network and the conferences and the networking, because you're not around that again. And that's what I really, miss, because I used to be really involved in the BNI groups, the networking groups, conferences, and now I don't get those anymore. For the past 7 years, I haven't had that. And, you miss that.
Time getting out of your job to go, is that what that's for?
Exactly. Well, I used to do that when I had my business, but now I haven't. And so that's what I'm working on getting into. I do a conference once a year. I go down for the big, a big conference, and it's so enlightening because you get to be new ideas, just like what you were saying. You get those like wow, and you're just sharing moments. So I want to go ahead and wrap up. I know you want to get back to your family time. That's important. And and that's one thing I do have also too. Even with doing this side business of what I'm doing, and I want to encourage all of you out there, the family time is what's important. And I see that now because, my wife and I, we go on a date once a week. We do our date thing. We get together. No matter how bad or how busy or stressful time is, you make that time. And for those of you guys listening, that's what's important, is making that time to do the things you like to do. And then you see the value in the family and the things that we want to do. So the money comes secondary. If you're just working for the money, it's never going to be enough. And I think that's what you were talking about. You're never going to make enough an hour for somebody else to be able to have enough freedom, because you're always going to have to go to work.
It's on some extent, and even beyond it, in terms of money, even in whatever life you're at, when you place that as the high value, I've known so many wealthy, unhappy people.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying money.
Doesn't.
I don't think money makes you unhappy at all. But when that is the end goal,
that's the end.
You sacrifice your health and your family for the money. It's a sad life, because I've figured this out. When I'm not doing well financially, I always have an excuse. It's the money that's bringing me down. But the problem is, when you get that money and you're still not doing well in life, you got nobody to blame but yourself.
That's right. So figure out the passion, and then figure out a way to make it valuable to someone else. It's about sharing with others. And again, I want to thank you, Vincent, for your time. And again, give me that website one more time, and I'm going to make sure I put this on the show notes also. And I'm going to let everybody know. I'll let you know when I actually put it out. Hopefully, I'll be able to get it out this Monday. Get all the editing, get everything done. So I'm not sure if the videos... I didn't do the video last week either because it was Memorial Day. I've just started doing the videos on YouTube. I just video the whole podcast. So I'll see about that one. So give me the website again and let people know how they can sign up. They definitely need to get his newsletter. I need to go there and sign up myself. I want to make sure I get your newsletter.
Yeah, it's vincentpuglisi.com. It's easier to click on the link than it is to spell it. So
I'll put a link on the show notes there, and I'll set that up.
freelance2freedombook.com as well. Essentially, they both work together.
Okay, cool. And so, guys, check that out. And again, I want to say thank you and be blessed, and continue to keep doing what you're doing. And so,
thanks, Dave.
My friends, thanks a lot for listening. Stay safe and keep surging forward.